Hello, everyone, and welcome into episode 152 of the Stomp the Bus Show. I'm your host, Mark Harris. And after spending some family time, holiday time at my family back in Washington, back in Arizona, I'm ready to dive into a lot of stuff that's happened in and around the Arizona State program. Starting with Kenny Dillingham, obviously returning to the team. Little late, 10 days late after his official signing back with Arizona State on December 20th. I'm recording on the 30th, but it's that time of year. Everyone kind of moves slowly in the Christmas time and the days heading up to New Year's Eve. So it is what it is. Just wanted to share a few quick thoughts about Kenny Dillingham officially staying, the domino effect of Kyle Whittingham going to Michigan, and some thoughts on the Sun Bowl. I'm not going to spend too much time on the Sun Bowl. By the time most people listen to this, the Sun Bowl will be over. And there's so many guys not playing in the game. It's not the most critical bowl game there is, but I do want to touch on it. So before I get started, please like and subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. And let's get going. Okay. First of all, it is just so good that ASU brought back or re-signed Kenny Dillingham. This is from Pete Thamel on December. Let's do this. Pete Thamel on December 20th. Sources: Kenny Dillingham has signed a new contract at Arizona State, which will average $7.5 million over the course of the deal. The staff salary pool is up to $11 million, which puts it near the top of the Big 12. So honestly, the details of the contract, one, it's pretty expected, and two, it's really not. The details of the contract aren't really that important so much as just the fact that the deal got done. Okay? Because Kenny Dillingham leaving Arizona State after 3 years, which we don't know how real that actually was, right? But just the prospect of it, the possibility of it, if that actually had happened and the university and Michael Crow just decided to not give in and not acquiesce to his demands, it would have been detrimental to the program. It would have been absolutely detrimental because there are so many people out there who, and this was something I saw a lot on social media that was like, oh, if we don't resign Dillingham, I'm not going to be a program, or I'm not going to be a fan of the program for a little bit. I'm going to wait until Michael Crow is retired, all this stuff. And some of it's bluster, but a lot of it's not. And a lot of the casual fans of Arizona State, and these are the most important fans out there, right? The casual fans of ASU, they are much more bought into the program because Kenny Dillingham is the coach, because of his energy, because of his the local vibe that he brings to the program. The fact that he is a native son of the Valley. He is someone who really cares about the university. He's turned down other jobs. We don't know exactly what happened with him in Michigan, right? But we know, he had the opportunity to go to Auburn for sure and potentially Penn State. And so, and look, it's not reported, but the fact that Auburn and Florida both hired Group of 5 head coaches and Dillingham stayed at ASU, that kind of tells you what his interest was. And so, even if he wasn't connected to every single one of these jobs directly, like LSU and Penn State, Florida, Michigan, all that, there was interest somewhere in one of those big jobs. And here he is still at ASU. Looks like he'll be around for a few more years. We don't know. I hope that next coaching cycle, there aren't these blue blood jobs that come up. I will be incredibly honest about that. Because eventually, it only takes one. And that's what got me nervous, prior to him actually signing the extension and it becoming official. It's just that, he can say everything, but it only takes one awesome job to pry him away. And maybe that, and again, I don't expect Kenny Dillingham to be here for 15, 20 years. I really don't. If we can get to 10 years with Dillingham, fine, That's just, it's just tough to hold on to a guy like this. And like, I will say, like literally the only positive thing of if Dillingham had left, and I mean the only one is that we wouldn't have to go through this next year or potentially the year after, right? Like if and when USC becomes open, and I'm honestly as ASU fans, we should root for USC to just be good at least, because then there's less incentive for them to get rid of Lincoln Riley. You have to kind of look ahead and look at how all these other potential openings could affect ASU. With that said, like right now, that doesn't matter because uh, he is with ASU. And really, the big sticking point in the contract extension that he wanted was to build up the salary pool for his staff. And as Pete Thamel reports, the staff salary pool is $11 million, which is near the top of the Big 12. That's great. And like ASU, there's no way it can compete with just the pure money that Cody Campbell is infusing into Texas Tech and the connection that BYU has with the Church of Latter-day Saints. That's just not there. But it is, I don't know, the largest or second largest university in the country by enrollment. Michael Crow has wisely bought up a ton of real estate in and around Tempe, ASU, probably some in downtown Phoenix as well. My point with all this is like, I don't want to hear they didn't have money. Okay. I get that it may not get the most donations from fans, boosters, alumni compared to other schools. Obviously, the Big 12 TV contract doesn't compare to the Big 10 and SEC TV contracts in terms of the yearly amount that's coming into each individual school. But I'm sorry, like ASU has resources as a university as a whole, and it has money that it can throw at coaches, which it did, right? Like for all the angst about Michael Crow, and believe me, like I was not completely rested about that. He at least saw the light, and I think he probably realized, because Michael Crow is, I believe, 70 years old. He probably realized that, fair or not, if he had, I don't want to say but if Dillingham had left for Michigan in this situation under his watch, that is something a lot of people would bring up. And that is something that a lot of people would think of first when they're thinking of Michael Crow's legacy at ASU. And there's a part of me that thinks that's kind of unfair, considering like you're the university president and there's all sorts of great things he's done for the university as a whole. But like, this is the world we live in. Like people care about sports. Like I love sports. Like I would think about that a lot, and there's a lot of people out there who don't give Michael Crow as much benefit of the doubt as I do as well. So I think he probably realized like, okay, you know what? Like it's probably better for me to just deal with this and get this extension done and not have a bunch of people on my back for the rest of my time as ASU's school president, and people remembering this well into the future. So credit to him for not ultimately getting in the way. Credit for Graham Rossini for getting the deal done. Rossini, he's been very committed. I think he basically said it was like a investment in leadership. And Graham Rossini did a good job as a front-facing official in these negotiations. So it's just, I'm so glad we don't have to deal with the whatever outcome it would have been had Dillingham left. Even if they had hired like a good replacement, it still wouldn't have felt the same for the average fan out there. And that's so important. It would have affected donations. It would have affected butts in the seats. It just would have affected the overall vibe. Even if they bring in like a Sean Lewis, who was a good coach at San Diego State, proved it at Kent State beforehand. I just throw out Sean Lewis as an example. Like people just wouldn't have had the same vibe. And that's so important in college football, especially these days with NIL. So I'm glad we don't have to deal with that. on a, social media note, yeah, it's pretty fun. I had a little bit of fun retweeting some of these Michigan accounts that were dead set, 100% certain that Dillingham was going to come there, and ultimately they have to go with Kyle Whittingham, which I will talk about in a few minutes. So yeah, that was really really fun to just all these Michigan accounts that were just convinced Dillingham was going to go there, and he ultimately didn't. I know Dillingham said he was never offered the job at Michigan. I believe that he was never 100% officially offered the job, but there was absolutely interest from Michigan in Dillingham. And if Dillingham wanted that job, he would have gotten it, especially after Alabama beat Oklahoma in the first round of the college football playoff. Because if you're Michigan, you probably wanted DeBoer first over Dillingham. He has a better track record, just more of an experienced coach. But then Dillingham, like I think that they wanted Dillingham over Whittingham, just due to Whittingham's age. But Dillingham, like I think that Dillingham, I think he knows that he hasn't maxed out ASU to what it can be, right? I don't think like this year, there's no way you can say, oh, he maxed out ASU. And I think this ties into him asking for money at the press conference he had on the morning of the 20th at Mountain America Stadium. Basically asking, hey, if you're in Phoenix and if you're a rich person in Phoenix, you can write a $20 million check for us to enhance our roster and you can become the most famous person in the Valley. I have mixed feelings on that. Personally, I don't like that he said that. I don't like it, for a few reasons. One, it really makes ASU look weak as a whole. It makes ASU look poor. It just like, and there's just something I just don't like about a coach openly asking for money in such a public forum. I think there's a way to do that in these like rich booster meetings, going through all the other people at the Sun Angel Collective and saying, if you can do it that way. I don't know how being so public about it helps ASU. In fact, I've listened to a lot of national college football shows and they all bring up, oh, like he wouldn't have had to do that if he was at Michigan, or he like, oh, if you're Kenny Dillingham, you're begging for money and all this. And I just don't like that out there. I really don't. With that said, I totally understand why he did it. And if it ends up working, then it completely worked out. Ultimately, like it's very easy for me to say, I don't love that you do that, but I don't have any actual stakes on it. Like this is Dillingham's job. And he knows that if he goes 6-6 next year, because the roster isn't up to snuff, a lot of the average fan isn't going to give him the benefit of the doubt. So I get why he did it. And ultimately, if it works out, like, then it was a wise decision to be so public with it. And look, like Dillingham is just a very like honest guy. He's a very just outward facing personality. And like, that's kind of the charm of him. And look, he did say, in Sun Bowl media availability that a lot more people have reached out to him saying, how can I help? And so if that comment, maybe it doesn't spur one mega donor, but it spurs a lots of semi big donors, then it would end up being worth it. So I guess that's kind of wraps up my thoughts on like how much I like his plea for more money. I'm not going to say I loved it, but I also get why he did it. And if it works out, then it's going to be incredibly smart looking back. So ultimately, these little news blurbs last just in a very short amount of time, and then everyone moves on to the next thing. You got college football playoff coming up in a few days, or the second round of the college football playoff coming up in a few days. And then you have the transfer portal opening, and then there's always something else, So it's just a blurb. I didn't really love it. I don't love that he's like the face of coaches asking for things publicly like that, but it is what it is. And ultimately, I'd rather have a coach that understands the game of NIL as opposed to a coach who just hates it at every turn and, always tries to do more with less and all that kind of stuff. And I guess, and like ultimately he's seeing what happened with Texas Tech this year, and he's thinking, well, if we can get our own Cody Campbell, that can be advantageous for ASU. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. Like ultimately, like this is what you get with Kenny Dillingham, right? And the good is so far outweighed the bad that like I can have my little criticisms here and there, but ultimately it doesn't matter. Like the fact that we kept him, and at least for one more year, right? Like who the heck knows what's going to happen in the future? Who knows if you know another coach of a blue blood program will be having a Sharon Moore situation and getting fired late in the process and all that. Like you never know what's going to happen in college football, but like it's very good for ASU as a whole to just keep Kenny Dillingham and stave off all of that negative energy that would have just exploded if he had left. So I'm just so glad, even 10 days after the announcement, uh, I'm just so glad that this is something that's been put to bed. And now everyone can just move forward, right? Now it's about the Sun Bowl. Now it's about all these guys going to the NFL draft, right? Like you can be a fan of ASU and be kind of annoyed that there's a lot of guys opting out, but a lot of those guys opting out, it's because they have really high draft status, right? Like Jordan Tyson, Keith Abney, Max Iannaccio, Keyshawn Elliott, ultimately Raleek Brown. It's good that these guys are not playing because it means they're going to the NFL draft, and for a lot of them, they're going to be drafted on the first 2 days, right? Like Jordan Tyson will be a top 10 pick most likely. Abney and Iannaccio could both be second rounders, and it would be surprising if they both fell into the day 3. And then the other guys can get picked as well, like your Shimon Mateers and Raleek Browns, Keyshawn Elliott's, Clayton Smith's example. I don't know if all those guys will get picked, but you get my point. But anyway, Michigan did end up hiring Kyle Whittingham. And I actually think this is a better hire for Michigan than Kenny Dillingham. There's so much conversation about the Michigan job being like, you need an adult in the room. And Kyle Whittingham, like everyone knows what you're getting. He's in much better shape than your average 66-year-old, your average person in general. He's built a successful program at Utah. He just gives off a very like serious demeanor. He has the gravitas to handle the Michigan head coaching job, and he plays the style of football that like Michigan fans like. And so I think if you're a Michigan fan and you're annoyed you didn't get Kenny Dillingham, like forget about the fact that Kyle Whittingham's 66 years old and you don't have this opportunity to have a super long runway with him as a head coach. Like everything is so year to year now in college football. And Michigan, you have the money to just overpay, honestly, for players in the portal, and then you can have a great team. And so who cares if Whittingham doesn't hate Ohio State the exact same way you do, or doesn't have the connections in suburban Detroit and suburban Cleveland high school football programs the way another coach might. Like, no, like this is the right guy to lead your program. And I also think Kenny Dillingham could have potentially gotten swallowed alive by the Michigan job. Because I saw some out there was some conversation of like, oh, Dillingham, like he turned around ASU after all the, Herm Edwards fallout and the sanctions and just what a mess the program was. And there are some similarities to that in Michigan. And I just completely disagree because one, ASU did not have the players, like it did not have the roster that Michigan has. So that's a huge difference to begin with. And secondarily, when Dillingham had his first season in 2023, he could just build and frankly be a bad team in relative obscurity. If you're but if you're doing that at Michigan, there is no obscurity. You're one of the top 5-10 programs in the country. There's a huge spotlight on you, especially following all the news about the Sharon Moore firing and departure. Like, you can't just like be bad the way ASU was in 2023. So I didn't think that was the best comparison, and ultimately we don't have to deal with it. There is some fallout from the Michigan job that does, or with Kyle Whittingham going to Michigan, that does impact ASU, though, and it really impacts the Big 12. And it is that the likely offensive coordinator for Michigan is Jason Beck, Utah's offensive coordinator. That, obviously, Utah's weakened with losing Kyle Whittingham. If they most likely lose Jason Beck, then they are even further weakened. I did not know that Utah averaged 41 points a game. It makes sense because they really lit it up this year against bad teams. And heck, they dropped 42 on ASU. So, like that's a really good hire for Michigan. But it doesn't stop there. They could also get Jay Hill from BYU, who's an excellent defensive coordinator. Now, neither of these are official just yet as I record on December 30th. But oh my, okay, like if Kyle Whittingham going to Michigan results in Jason Beck following him from Utah and then Jay Hill going to Michigan as the defensive coordinator from BYU, that significantly weakens Utah, and it weakens BYU as well. And look, both of those potential departures help ASU. Anytime any team in the Big 12 that's good, that is in a better station than ASU becomes worse, it helps ASU. And helps Arizona too. It helps Texas Tech. It helps Kansas State. It helps all these teams because then it's just a less treacherous path to potentially get back to the Big 12 championship, to win games, to, just when ASU play. I know ASU plays BYU on the road next year. Guess what? It's going to be easier to beat the Cougars in Provo next year if they don't have Jay Hill calling plays on defense. Like, that's just how it goes. And I'm not someone who is like, oh, this hurts the Big 12. Like, I don't care about that. I don't. I care about ASU, and I care about whatever the pathway is for ASU. And if that means they're playing worse coordinators at BYU and Utah, then so be it. And if they're playing a worse coach at Iowa State because Matt Campbell left, so be it. Although I do think Jimmy Rogers is a good coach, but that's a separate discussion. This could be excellent. I also saw that Utah defensive lineman, his name's John Henry Daly, I believe. He is entering the portal. And you know what? Like, yep, All-American defensive lineman John Henry Daly could join Kyle Whittingham at Michigan. Again, that's not something that's good for the Big 12, right? Like, this guy was a really good player, All-American, 17.5 tackles for loss and 11.5 sacks. And this was after he missed the season finale too. So 11.5 sacks in 11 games. So like, that's a really good defensive end who ASU will not have to deal with anymore. That's great. Speaking of transfer portal, if Jason Beck leaves, guess who else could be leaving Utah? Devin Dampier, Saguaro High School product, who was coached by Jason Mons at Saguaro at one point. That would be an excellent quarterback for ASU to get. He is, if Devin Dampier ends up leaving, there's been some rumors about it. I don't really know if I can put any of that. I don't know what that means for ASU, but I don't know. It's easy to connect the dots when his offensive coordinator is going to Michigan and Michigan already has Bryce Underwood. And if you're Devin Dampier, you're not going to be like, oh, I'll just go to Michigan and try to beat out Bryce Underwood. No, because Michigan is incredibly invested in Bryce Underwood. So if you're Devin Dampier, you need to see the writing on the wall and be like, okay, like I could stay at Utah, but my offensive coordinator is gone, who I had so much success with at New Mexico and then last year at Utah. Now, he did say, I'm big on staying. Dampier made his intentions of staying with the Utes for his senior season clear during a December 3rd appearance on ESPN 700 radio in Utah. But again, that was before We knew Whittingham was leaving, and announcement apparently delayed. They also have Bird Ficklin at Utah. So I haven't been following this situation super closely, but let's just read this. And this is on Utah Utes on SI. It appears that Whittingham is intent on keeping Underwood around next season. It's also sounding like Beck could be making a move north to join Whittingham with the Wolverines if his trusty offensive coordinator jumps ship again, but the team he leaves for already has a starting caliber quarterback on the roster. Would Dampier sacrifice playing time so he could be with Beck and Whittingham for his senior season? I really doubt he would sacrifice playing time. It'd be a complicated scenario for all parties to sort out, and one that will likely unfold over the beginning of 2026. The 2-week transfer portal window set to open on January 2nd will provide Dampier, if he so chooses, an opportunity to examine his options outside of Salt Lake City. If Beck decides to follow Whittingham to Michigan after Utah's bowl game, then it wouldn't come as a shock to see Dampier's name pop up in the portal. Yeah, I think Cole Forsman of Utah Utes on SI kind of hit it right on the head. Like, it's easy for Dampier to say, I'm going to stay on December 3rd when there was no movement among the coaching staff at Utah. But now there is. And that, like, if you're Dampier, you can't follow him to Michigan, and maybe you stay at Utah, but now you don't have the offensive coordinator that you've been tied to. So why not go back to Arizona and reunite with Jason Mons, who was your coach in high school? And by the way, it's ASU clearly needs a quarterback, and that Dillingham is an offensive mind. So I'm just connecting the dots on that, and I would love to have Devin Dampier as ASU's quarterback next year. He has jumped everyone else. Unless Sam Levitt returns, which seems incredibly unlikely, I have him over Colton Joseph. I've had him over DJ Lagway, Raiola, who I do not want Raiola. Josh Hoover, Kattenhauser, all these guys have been thrown out there. Dampier moves all the way up the list. So that's just kind of where my brain is right now. And he would also have only one. He's a senior, and so that works perfectly with ASU's young quarterbacks. You can tell Cam Dyer, you can tell Jake Fetty, hey, we have this guy coming in for 2026. He'll be there 1 year. And then if he gets injured, one of you guys can play. And, after the 2026 season, it'll be between Cam Dyer and Jake Fetty as who will be the quarterback for ASU heading into 2027. So I think that, like, the shuffling of dominoes and the coaching departures at Utah and potentially BYU with Jay Hill, and 0 coaching departures at ASU. In fact, they're just adding defensive backs coach Demetrius Martin from UCLA, which means Cole Martin. There's a likelihood that he could come back. The stability at ASU, avoiding all the departures, right? That can help with Utah being in flux. And so, man, if we get Devin Dampier, that would be an incredible option at quarterback for the Sun Devils next year. But next year isn't here just yet. ASU is playing Duke in the Sun Bowl on December 31st. By the time you're listening to this, I'm sure the game is over because I'm just been lazy and procrastinating, and as the end of the year comes. But you know what? It is what it is. ASU is like a 3.5 point underdog, and that totally makes sense to me. 3-point underdog, at least according to DraftKings on ESPN. I mean, you're playing a guy in Darian Mensah who will play in the NFL soon. Duke can score. I mean, they won the ACC. They beat a 10-win Virginia in the ACC championship game to win the ACC. I do think it's interesting that ASU is only a 3-point underdog despite all of the opt-outs, right? So thank you to Devils in Detail for this story. It shows all the guys that are not playing. So a lot of these guys are backups and wouldn't have mattered, or they've been injured for so long. guys like Fiaseu, Levitt, Kyson Brown, Ben Coleman, for example. But then you have a bunch of other guys who aren't playing. Rodney Bimage, that's going to be not great to have him on the field. And then you also have the opt-outs, right? You have Raleek Brown, Tyson, Mateer, Ian Achor, Clayton Smith, and Keyshawn Elliott, and Keith Abney. And then you have all the guys transferring, Javen Robinson and Josh Atkins, the most notable among those guys. Now, you do still have Jordan Crook. I believe Prince Dorba is playing. He is not listed on here. So Prince Dorba should play. Kongaika should play. Who's the defensive lineman? I forget. I don't see Albert Smith on here, but no mention of Albert Smith, so he could play. Justin Watley, he will definitely play. I do not see Miles Rouser listed in this article, so he will play. Like some of these guys who are going to the NFL, it actually kind of behooves them to play in this game because they're fringe prospects. So it's like, okay, what are you actually losing out on by playing in this game? It can only help you. Whereas Keith Abney and Ian Achor and Tyson and some of the other guys, like they know they're going to the NFL. So there's no point in playing this game, especially with the backup quarterback. Obviously, we have Jeff Sims will play a lot in this game, as well as I'm sure we'll see a lot of Cam Dyer. Offensive line wise, I don't see Kyle Scott listed on here, and that's good. He's kind of in that same boat with those other fringe NFL guys. So I think there will be enough players of decent quality playing in this game for ASU. But I would still pick Duke in this game. Like they just have such a massive advantage at quarterback. I know Duke's defense is pretty suspect. And so that'll be an opportunity for some guys, right? But I think the quarterback discrepancy is going to hurt ASU in this game. Unless Cam Dyer really balls out, I think we kind of know what we have with Jeff Sims. Who knows? Maybe guys like Malik McClain, a Derek Eusebio play well. But I mean, I'm still excited to watch this game. And one name I haven't mentioned, this could be a big game for Jason Brown because look at all the running backs not playing, right? Kyson Brown, Kanye Udo, and Raleek Brown. And that leaves Jason Brown and also Demarius Robinson as well. And so, Jason Brown was he was a 4-star recruit. And I believe he was the top recruit in ASU's class a few years ago. The little that we saw of him against Colorado, he looked pretty dang good. And I just think this guy, like, I want to see him play well tomorrow. That's kind of my one big thought with this game. And also just I wish the best for the Justin Watleys and the Crooks and the Kyle Scotts and just some of the Miles Rousers, the Prince Dorbas, some of the guys, the older guys on this team who have maybe haven't been the stars of ASU's turnaround in the same way of a Jordan Tyson, Sam Levitt, Scattaboo, Mateer, whomever. Keith Abney, but they've been really solid players who have filled gaps, and I really want to see them go out well. And, Dillingham's mentioned this, like this is the opportunity to get your 20th win in 2 years for ASU. And that's not something that happens all the time. And so, for a year that's had just weird ups and downs, injuries, uneven play by the offense, you go 8-4, and it's kind of a weird way to get there. You've won a bunch of close games. Your Big 12 point differential is negative, despite going 6-3 in league play. You won so many close games, and you got blown out by Utah, and you lose to Arizona by 16 points. Like it's been I'm just going to say a weird route to get there. But if you end the year, you beat Duke, you get to 9-4, 20 wins in 2 years, and you have wins over the ACC championship, the ACC champion and the Big 12 champion. that's pretty good. Considering all the external factors, right? Everything, like that's pretty good to have a 9-win season in which you beat the Big 12 champion and the ACC champion. Like that's not the worst outcome. And again, getting that 20th win in 2 years. So, I'm excited to watch the game. I'm excited to watch the game with, I mean, there's not going to be like if ASU loses this game, it's not the end of the world either. It's like, oh, we lost to Duke with a better quarterback. Bunch of guys opt out. So it's really kind of a win-win scenario. Like, barring a just absolute blowout, I think that we'll be able to look back at this season not with like, oh, this was awesome, because that's just not true. But like as like, what, like considering the circumstances, they got as far as they could go. So still rooting for a win. I like that it's the Sun Bowl. I said, I'm so glad we didn't play in the LA Bowl, and I stand by that. Playing Duke is just better than playing Boise State. And yeah, I'm excited to watch some of these guys for the last time. And I'm excited to watch some of these young guys, like a Joseph Smith, a Martell Hughes, Jason Brown. We'll see what AJ Ia can do, right? Like, I don't know. I'm excited. See if some of these, like a Corey Butler emerges at wide receiver in the game. Who knows? And maybe Cam Dyer balls out, and we aren't talking about trying to get someone in the portal. We're just like, let's just roll with Cam Dyer. That would be great too. Okay, that's going to close out this episode. There will be more time to talk about that loss to Oregon State was abysmal, absolutely abysmal in men's basketball. Being 9-4 versus being 10-3 in non-con is a world of difference. Had you beat Oregon State, which you should have done, you led by double digits late in that game, it would feel so much different. You wouldn't have a complete eyesore of a loss on your record, and just your only losses would be to UCLA, USC, and Gonzaga, and you would have wins over Texas, Oklahoma, Santa Clara. There's some I'm forgetting, but like that's just such a bad way to end the non-con. And you get Colorado this weekend, and that's not the most formidable opponent, but the Big 12 is just such a beast this year, and I don't know. A part of me is glad that like maybe the hope has been extinguished earlier, and so now we can just see what happens in Big 12 play. But now there's no expectation of like, oh, maybe we can squeeze out a few wins and make the tournament. And I just feel like that loss to Oregon State was an early indicator of what this season is going to be. So I hope I'm wrong, but that was just abysmal. Women's basketball is doing awesome, still undefeated. Nothing bad to say there. And ASU hockey is kind of steadying the ship. That win over a top 10 Dartmouth team, it's keeping them afloat. They split at Dartmouth. They beat them 5-1 on Saturday, and then lost 1-4 the next day. But by splitting these games against these top teams, you're kind of keeping yourself afloat. And so hopefully they can stack some wins as the season goes on and improve their record. All right. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. I definitely put the recording on hold. Just it's Christmas time. I was traveling. I was just kind of lazy, as everyone is in the last few days of the year after Christmas. It's a very unproductive time of the year, and that showed on this channel. But I think I jam-packed a lot of things in this 40 minutes or 39 minutes or so of recording. And it'll be by the next time we'll record, the portal will officially be open. We'll see who the next quarterback is, and ASU will have played the Sun Bowl. And so, cheers to 2026, and go Devils.